You are either growing or you're dying. Receptive to change, like a flower is receptive to the rays of the morning sun. We're so closed off from life that nothing short of the most cataclysmic event will get your attention. And while we all may look for that road to Damascus epiphany where God Himself reaches out to us, transforming us from Saul the persecutor to Paul the Redeemer, those events are as rare as Jupiter aligning with Mars. And that may not be a bad thing, because I'm not sure how many of us have the continence to withstand such trauma without withering away. And so for the rest of us, it's really the familiar which we'll rely upon to transform us. I'm reminded of an old parable. God decides to make Himself visible to a king and a peasant. Sends down an angel to tell them of the blessed event. And the angel goes, "O king, God has deigned to reveal Himself to you in whatever manner you choose. How do you wish to see God?" The king, sitting pompously on his throne, surrounded by his awestruck subjects, says, "How should I see God save in His power and majesty? Show us God in the full glory of power." God grants his wish and appears as a bolt of lightning that instantly incinerates the king and his court. Nothing, not even a cinder, remains. The angel manifests herself to the peasant. Says to the peasant, "God has deigned to reveal Himself to you in whatever manner you choose. How do you wish to see God?" Scratching his head, puzzling for a long while, the peasant responds, "I am poor. I am not worthy to see God face to face. But if it's God's will that I should see Him, let me see Him in the things in which I am familiar, in the land that I plow, in the food that I eat, in the water that I drink. Show me the presence of God in the face of my family, of my neighbors, and if God finds it good for myself and others, even in my own reflection as well." God grants his wish, and he lives a long and happy life. Just like it's the small things in life that are the most important things, it is the familiar which has the greatest potential for changing who we are. You already know that. I'm not here to tell you that. I'm here to remind you of that, to make you a little more receptive to the quotidian events in your life, to the daily interactions with your family, with your spouses, with your kids, with your colleagues, with your friends. Because each of these have gifts that can transform your life. And all you have to do is reach out and take these gifts. The gift, part one. 2002, my son is going to go off to college. Last weekend before he's going to head off to college, he and I decided we're going to take one last backpacking trip in the North Cascades. We'd gone on scores of backpacking trips as he was growing up. And I knew this would be a special one because he would be crossing that threshold into adulthood. This would be the end of an era. We're about 2 miles off into the hike. It's the fall time, and I hear Alex say, bees. And within a few seconds, I start feeling stinging on my legs and then my torso. Well, they weren't bees, they were wasps. And wasps in the fall time, knowing that their time is short, are meaner than the proverbial junkyard dog. And they're after me. I'm trying to get out of there, but I have a few things going against me. One, anybody who's hiked in the North Cascade knows it's either up or down, and we were going up. I was shouldering a pretty heavy pack. and I'm getting stung all over my body by these wasps. Well, I twist my ankle and I sprain it. And I'm not talking minor league, it hurts sprain. I'm talking it's going to be another 6 months until I can run again sprain. I'm in a lot of pain. Alex, being the wiser of us two, said, "Dad, we really should go back. Let's go back down, we'll just call it off." Common sense not being one of my stronger suits, I said to him, "No way, Sporty. This is our last hike before you go off to college. I'm not going to miss this. I can do this." Because that's the way I was raised. I can do it. I get back up, dust myself off, and I start hiking. And with each step, my body reminds me of how bullheaded I am for trying this, because pain is shooting through my right ankle. But I can do it. Well, I can do it until we turn off the one trail and keep on going up, and there's strewn with boulders, rocks, fallen limbs of trees, and suddenly I can't do it. The pain is too much. At this point, Alex extends his hand back to me and says, "Here, take my hand. I'll get you through this." And I will make now a confession that I really never confessed to anybody, even privately, much less in a public setting like this. One of my many foolish thoughts in my life was back when Alex was 10 years old. He's my first son, and I think especially for a lot of us dads, you always want to kind of be I don't know, maybe a little macho or a little manly. What it relates to is a little dumb. Because I thought, boy, he's still holding my hand. He's still holding my hand at age 10. He's too old to be doing this. I'd hold his hand, but I'm thinking, when is he going to stop doing this? That is one of the most foolish thoughts I've ever had in my life. Holding your child's hand when it's out of love, out of trust, out of security, is truly one of the wonders of this world. And I thought those days were long gone with Alex. I thought that train had long left the station. It's a one-way train, it's not coming back. And yet here he was, age 18, holding out his hand for me to take. And I took his hand, and he would help me over the rough spots. At first, he'd have to reach behind and say, "Here, take my hand." We got to the point where he knew when I needed his help. He would just put his hand back, and all I needed to do was reach up and take it. I learned a couple of things that day. One is really a metaphor for my relationship with Alex. Up until that time, I was always the stronger one. I was the one who was going to put more weight in my backpack. I was the one who would have to slow down to make sure Alex could keep up with me. Our relationship changed, and I realized that. From that day forward, he would always be the stronger one. He's the one who's going to be shouldering the pack. He's the one slowing down so his dad can keep up with him. And while that day hasn't come yet, it will come. He'll be my caretaker, my solace, my hope. The second lesson I learned that day was one of really going against the way I was raised up. I was raised, you can do it yourself. You do it alone. And I learned really I can take the help even of my son, my kids, because sometimes I need to rely on the strength of others to reach my desired destination. And so while it's still my default mode, do it alone, I at least know now that I have the option of reaching out and asking for help. The gift, part 2. About 4 years later, I have one of the greatest joys in my life, and at the same time, facing one of life's hardships. One of the greatest joys, the birth of my daughter, Adriana, and that was on September 14th. 5 weeks later to the day, I was diagnosed with colon cancer. And the thing about when you're first diagnosed with cancer, all they can tell you is, you've got cancer. Don't know whether it's spread to other parts of your body. Actually, they did know of the types, it was a kind of an aggressive type, so I guess I got that much news as well as an aggressive type of cancer. And we're about to undergo this path here. And at that point, I just made myself 2 promises. One was, I will do whatever I need to do for my kids to beat this disease. You want to poke me, you want to prod me, you want to film me, I will do whatever you ask me to do to give myself the best chance of beating this disease. The second promise I made to myself was that I wasn't going to let this disease beat me mentally. You know, it could beat me physically. I've had too many people I've known in life get diagnosed with cancer, and they say, you know, I'm going to beat this thing. I'm going to beat it, don't worry. 3 months later, they're dead. I wasn't going to fool myself that way. I was 48 years old at that time. I've been so lucky. And I thought, if this was the end of the road for me, you know what? It's been a great trip. I've been luckier than most, and I can deal with it. So those are the 2 promises that I kept. And I really tried to relate this to other people as I'm going through this process, trying to instill in them, it's okay, whatever happens, except for my kids. I will tell you that, my kids, I told, I am going to beat this, I'm going to be okay. Because with kids, I did not want them to have that other message. But everybody else, I was okay with it. And I was okay. But I go down, and it's time for the surgery itself. And you know, you have to get there very early in the morning, and you're getting prepped. And I'm still feeling good. I'm feeling good going in, and so they take you down to the little room outside of the operating room. And my surgeon comes in, he's looking at the chart and says, okay, you're here for the breast implants, right? I go, that's right, double Ds, make sure they're big. You know, we're joking around. I'm on top of this, I'm good with this. You know, put me under, cut me open because you're gonna have to take out a part of my colon. Fine, just get rid of this stuff. We talk a little bit more, and then he says, okay, the anesthesiologist will be in soon, he's gonna say a few words to you, and then we'll get the show on the road. Fine. There's something about the thought of the anesthesiologist coming into the room and knowing that soon I will be put under. Soon I'm going to be put to sleep. Soon I may or may not wake up. Fact of life. And it's amazing how that little mustard seed of fear and anxiety can germinate so quickly. Because that's what happened then. Mr. Cool wasn't so cool all of a sudden. My heart started to do the rumba, my blood pressure was going skyscraper, my hands were clammy. I was losing it, and I could feel this thing overtaking me in a hurry. I was scared. I'm laying on the gurney, my wife Ingrid and my daughter Adriana, 5 weeks old, in the room, and I'm losing it. I look over to my right, and I see my son Alex. And I look into his eyes, and I see him there, and he says, Dad, do you remember how I helped you on that hike? Take my hand, I'll get you through this. Behind Alex was my daughter Kira. Behind my daughter Kira was my son Nicholas. Behind them was all the family and friends that I had opened myself up to give me strength for just this occasion. I took Alex's hand. My heart rate went down. Blood pressure was normal. I was calm again. I was good. Through 3 further operations, more complications than I'd like to think of, hospitalizations, invasive procedures, whenever I felt the least bit of anxiety, all I had to do was look over there, and Alex was there. The gift that he gave me those few years before came back and saved me through this trauma. So my message today, it's the little things. It's the small things in life that because we're so busy, we often overlook. But it is the familiar, not the unusual, the small, not the grand, the daily, not the mystic, which allows us to evolve. So, whether it's a hand of a 10-year-old or an 18-year-old, if that hand goes out, grab it, take it, and change. Thank you.